back to the Azure Terraformer. This is part 2 of my Azure DevOps Terraform module refactoring. We are going to dig into that multi-stage pipeline module, set up an example, hook it up with credentials and backends, and give it a go and see what happens. If you guys are enjoying this series, please give me a like and consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps out and I really appreciate it. Without further ado, let's get started. Now let me go and test my repo sample. Now for this, I need to copy my shell script over into this folder so that it's also there. And now I can run the same debug.sh command and see what this thing is going to go do. So we have an application name, we have a project. So this is actually going to create a project using the resource, and then it's going to set up a repo there. So this is where we're using a combination of composable modules and resources. There's really no point in creating a module that does just something as silly as create, just four lines of code, right? So I think we're pretty good with this. So now let's see here. So I have this project. Let's try creating this project. And you know what? Maybe for this one, I'll also create a variable for this to specify the project name. And the project name, maybe the project name could be something different than the actual application name. So I'm also going to pass in the application name. And it also seems like having these backends configurable here probably makes a lot of sense. So I'm gonna go set these up. Your TFRs file are legit HCL files, so you can use map and list syntax within your TFRs file. Now this probably wouldn't make a ton of sense to store a client secret in the TFRs file, but this is an example, so it's not intended to ever get checked into source code with that secret value in there. So I feel like it's okay for me to do that. Now that the locals are gone, this looks a little bit more realistic. However, I do want to set up different credentials for dev and prod. So I've set up my dev and prod subscription input variables as a complex object. This is the syntax for defining a complex object type declaration within an input variable. This is really the only time where you can declare object structures like this with their types. When you're, most of the complex objects and typing in HCL is kind of dynamic. So it's inferred based on the structure that you define. So it's this is not very common to set these things up. But that should allow me to have a dev subscription for this, and then I'm gonna also have a prod subscription. I'm also gonna have a prod subscription right here. And so if somebody really wanted to go set this up, it'd be very, very easy to go configure dev prod. And I need to set up the backend for both dev and prod. And I need the structure of this object in order to go set that up. So there we go. If somebody really wanted to get this thing going, they could plug in all these values and they'd have their prod subscription and the prod backend. All you'd need to do is have a storage account and a client and a service principal set up in each of these subscriptions with necessary access, and you're good to go. So that is pretty much all you need to do. So if I go update these, it's no longer a local. It's going to be dev subscription, and it's going to be dev backend, And then we're going to have kind of the same structure except prod. Wonderful. Okay, and I'm going to pass in that as a variable, and I think we're good to go. So let me make sure I've got the application name, the project name. Actually, that's going to go here, and the application name is something different. So the project name is probably going to, I mean, it could be human-friendly project name with spaces and capitals and things like that. The application name is a distinct naming convention that I use very commonly in conjunction with an environment name, dev, prod, that is very shorthand notation to help build consistent naming conventions across resources and tags within environments that you build out. So I think this should be good to go. Let's go try it. And it looks like we have quite a lot of stuff that we're going to be blowing out here. I'm a little, my application name was set up as test123. So that's why I didn't have to input that. The project name, I suppose I could put the project name in here as well. And then just, somebody who's downloading and using this module would just have to make sure that they could go do that. So now let's go deploy this thing, and let's test out this project and see if we can get it working. Now, one thing that I do want to try is I actually want to pass in these values. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go get the client ID and client secret for all this stuff. I'm going to set this up because I want to actually see this pipeline work end to end. So this is my sample that I'm going to check into code. I'm going to go create another one, which is going to be .debug.tfrs. And it's going to be an exact copy of this, which you can go create yourself. But I'm going to make sure debug.tfrs is excluded from check-in. So anytime I ever want to run locally, I'm going to use .debug.tfrs. And my .debug.sh, I could configure that, to have a var file, and I'll just have it use debug.tfrs, and that should be pretty straightforward. So now let me go populate debug.tfrs with the correct values from my Azure subscriptions.
A few moments later.
Okay, so I've got all of my credentials entered. I've got my Terraform state backend. Now let's try and rerun apply and see what we're going to make changes. Now I provisioned all this stuff already. While that's running, I just want to go out here, smash refresh, so we can see what's the new project that we've created. So we got episode 54 here, and we have a repo called test Terraform with a bunch of stuff in it. We have our pipelines, test 1, 2, 3, prod, etc. So I think we're in pretty good shape. Now we just have to make sure that those credentials are all up to date. So we're going to be modifying all these values. That was really fast. Now, if I go to my library, I can go look at each of these variable groups that are out here, and I can see that these have all been updated with those values that I set. They used to all say foo. Now, if I go to my credentials, you can see that the client secret is hidden because it is a secret value, and all those values are there. So that's it. We got everything hooked up. We're going to go move on to getting this thing running and making some fixes to that source code template. Until next time, this is the Azure Terraformer signing off.